In this presentation, I'd like to share with you some tips for conducting better interviews and spinning great content. Now, assuming you need to publish content and use content marketing in your business, which is pretty much everybody nowadays, any business owner can benefit from doing this. Well, if that's you, interviews can be a huge source of content creation and a very powerful source of content creation because content consumers love listening to interviews, people love being interviewed, and just in general, the dynamic that comes from interview-based content is very, very powerful. So why not use it to your advantage as a marketer and as a business owner? Now, the interview itself, I want to be speaking to you specifically today about conducting audio and video-based interviews. The tips and advice I would give you if you were doing, let's say, written-based interviews where you're sending the questions to someone via email and having them respond, the tips would be slightly different. When you're doing audio and video-based interviews, sometimes they're even live on air, you want to make sure that you're well prepared and that you handle them accordingly. So I want to talk about things like giving somebody a Skype call and recording that conversation, or doing a Google Hangout or a webinar or teleseminar, or even nowadays with the live streaming apps that are available. These are the types of interviews that are extremely powerful and can actually have a huge benefit, not just for you as the content publisher, but also for the person being interviewed as well. Now, let's actually talk about you. There are a number of benefits to doing interviews as a publisher. I wanted to focus on 3 today. The first, and I kind of touched on it already, is the fact that it's a killer form of content creation. Not only is it interesting and it's highly dynamic and people like to listen to interviews, but the type of content that you can spin from an interview is fantastic. You can have audio content. If you're doing anything with video or streaming or Hangouts, you also have video content. Once you've completed the interview, that material can then be sent to a transcriptionist where all of the interview content can be spun into text. And once it's in a text-based format, the sky's the limit. Obviously, blog posts, reports, all different types of formats can be distributed from this single interview and put in front of people in a number of different places. Now, there are people who love consuming content that's audio and video based, and then there's a whole other group of people that hate it. They can't stand taking all the time it takes to listen to a full hour-long audio interview. They just want the 15-minute summary in a PDF or in an ebook or in a blog post. And that's fine too, because guess what? You as a content publisher doing interviews or using them as part of your strategy can distribute content in all of those formats and cater to all of those different types of tastes. So that's the first key benefit here that you want to keep in mind as I give these tips to you. Next, the networking and relationship building. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. If you've ever been interviewed, whether it was online somewhere, on a blog, on a Hangout, on a webinar, or maybe just offline for some other purpose, maybe it was for TV, you usually remember that person that interviewed you. You usually remember the situation. You remember their name, their face, even the types of questions they asked you. It creates a connection between people that's far stronger than, let's say, having a casual conversation online or at a store or anywhere else for that matter. These types of connections go deep and they can last a long time. But not only that, when you interview someone, you're putting them on a platform and giving them exposure. Regardless if they already have a big audience or not, they will be inherently appreciative of that opportunity. So when it comes time to maybe asking them to help you out in your business or partnering with you or who knows what it may be, you've established a relationship at a much deeper level than someone who may have just said, oh, hey, I bought your product, thanks very much. It goes one level or maybe even further than that, deeper, if you will. The third benefit here is competitive edge education. Many business owners, and possibly yourself included in this, don't have a lot of time. We're very, very busy. We're running from one task to the next. We're working on selling. We're working on improving our systems. Who knows what a given day might bring to us in this crazy world that we live in. Not all of us make the time for education. Well, if you integrate interviews as part of your content publishing strategy, not only are you generating great content for your audience, you're giving yourself an opportunity to carve out an hour of your day or 2 hours of your day, whatever it may be, to sit down and ask questions and get meaningful answers from an expert who can help you. So as you go through this process, yeah, you're creating a piece of content, but you're getting new knowledge that may give you a competitive edge in your business. And it's knowledge that you may not have acquired otherwise because you may not have created the time for that education. And again, Great idea. Lots of entrepreneurs know they need to study and learn new things, but very few of us have the time to do this every single day. Interviews basically force you to get educated on a new topic, and if you pick your guests carefully, you can be learning some amazing stuff while getting the dual benefits of the networking and the content creation we've already talked about here. So I have a number of tips I'd like to share with you right now when it comes to conducting audio or video-based interviews. And these are tips that I think can help you acquire the skill or develop the skill of being a good interviewer more quickly. So the first tip here is the concept of letting. Let and don't force. And basically I'm saying remove the pressure here. When you get into an interview situation, you're going to find that you may have an internal pressure to keep things structured, to make sure you ask a regimented set of questions where one question segues into the next and it all forms into this beautiful picture at the end. What you need to realize is that an interview is really a conversation between two people. And never do you enter a conversation in the real world in your mind dictating that first I'm going to ask this and they're going to answer this way and then they're going to ask me a question. We don't do that in the real world. It's a very dynamic process when we speak to other people, and you have to see your interview as the same type of environment. Yes, you can have some direction. You can have an idea of where you want to go. You can even have an idea of the types of questions you want to ask. But let the conversation go where it may. If something pops up that wasn't scheduled or scripted, be willing to go there. Remove the pressure is the key thing here. Don't stress about it. Realize that there is no perfect way of conducting an interview. You can simply be yourself, have a conversation with someone else, turn on the recorder, and at the end of that conversation, you'll have a meaningful piece of content that other listeners will get value from, assuming you covered a topic that they're interested in. Now, obviously, if you have a specific agenda for that interview, stick within that range and make sure your conversation stays on track there. But don't allow the pressure of just getting this thing absolutely right or making it perfect interfere with your ability to have a meaningful conversation with the person that you're interviewing. Let it happen and enjoy the process. Now, the next tip is basically an extension of what I was already saying here, and it's the idea of having a plan. Now, having a plan does not mean you need to script every single sentence of your interview. What it means is that you want to at least have an idea of, if somebody is listening to this thing, what do I want them to walk away with? What new insights, what sort of emotional response do I want them to have from listening to this interview? Beyond that, don't allow your need to control this thing and to make sure that each and every bullet point gets covered to distract you from what you're ultimately trying to do here, which is create a valuable piece of content. Now, from personal experience, I can relate two different experiences to you that really stood out in my mind. One time I was conducting an interview, and the person I was interviewing, we talked ahead of time before we turned on the recorder and got the whole thing going. And we basically ran through it. We said, first we're going to cover point 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. I'm going to allow you to expand here, here, and here. And we really had this whole thing scripted. They had a printout, I had a printout of exactly the way we wanted it to go. And the whole interview was a disaster because instead of allowing ourselves to kind of freely think and engage and talk about the points that we already kind of inherently knew, we were so focused on sticking to that order of hammering point 1 and making sure we don't skip to point 3 before doing point 2. And before you know it, you've totally lost the value and the message that you want to share. So having a plan means understanding what your overall goal is, the overall direction you want the interview to go in, but make sure your plan is not so rigid that you and or the person being interviewed gets distracted by it and actually forgets to deliver the goods. They forget to give the advice that they really want to give because they're so focused on doing it in the right order. Usually when we're forced into that kind of box or to play by those kind of rules, we don't express ourselves fully. So make sure your plan is dynamic and flexible enough so that both you and the person being interviewed can express themselves fully. The next tip, be big, but not fake. So what do I mean by that? Being big means that I want you to kind of remove yourself, when you're conducting an interview, remove yourself from the mental state of, I'm just having a conversation with somebody in a coffee shop. It's a good place to be in terms of getting comfortable and getting into a flow. It's not necessarily a good place to be when it comes to making your interview sound interesting. You need to be able to inflect your voice, to almost over-exaggerate your enthusiasm so that it bleeds bleeds through the microphone. Not all of us are kind of naturally expressive this way. It's a skill that needs to be practiced, but you can see in the brackets here I have not fake. And it's a skill that you're going to have to kind of play with and learn and listen to the playback. So as you do more and more interviews, listen to your voice. Did you come across really boring last time? Next interview, try picking it up a little bit. Speak with more tempo, speak with more volume, inflect your voice up and down. Try to sound more interested and interesting, but also play that careful balance where you don't sound fake or don't sound like you're screaming into the microphone. Let your general passion bleed through, kind of like it is right now for me. I'm speaking to you. I wouldn't speak like this to you if you were just sitting here in my house. I'd probably be a little bit more reserved, but I know that the purpose of my speaking right now is to deliver a message to you. It's to communicate an idea to you via video with a PowerPoint on my screen. So I'm going to speak in a slightly more energetic tone so that the way I feel about this topic comes through and you receive it that way. So practice being big, but not fake. And remember, it takes practice. You're not going to get it right the first time. Next tip. This is a really big one that I wish I had learned earlier on in my interviewing days, and that is to prepare rescue questions. Now, what you might not realize is even if you're interviewing somebody who is highly successful, has a big audience, has years of experience, what sometimes happens is they're not accustomed to being on the spot. They're not accustomed to people staring at them while they have to deliver an answer, and they want their answers to be perfect, right? They want to come across smart and competent, and they want to impress the audience and so on. But what can happen with some guests, again, regardless of experience and background, is they can stumble their words. They can forget what they want to say. They can lose their confidence. And you as the interviewer need to be very, very sensitive to their mental state and their emotional state. You need to be as empathetic as possible to really read how they're feeling in this moment. And you'll be able to notice right away if they're having a hard time answering a question. Maybe you've hit them with a question they didn't expect. Maybe they lost their train of thought and they're totally confused and now they feel embarrassed. Have some rescue questions prepared that will inspire confidence in them again. So as an example, you ask them a question about how they crafted their last deal, and they're starting to give an answer, and then they totally forget the name of the person they were working with, and it breaks their concentration, and they forget the rest of their point. And here they are saying hum and ha, and they don't really know where to go next. You could interject by saying, you know what, this actually reminds me of a time where I was on your blog, and I read this really interesting post by you where you were talking about so-and-so. And you can redirect it back to them, but allow them to go on another tangent that lets them pick themselves back up by their own bootstraps. Let them talk about another topic that they're confident in. And then if you can revisit the question they were stuck on when they're in a more powerful state, great. And if you don't feel like they're ready to go back there, then again, you can just move on and go in a different direction. Your rescue questions will allow you to kind of segue out of these difficult spots and move somewhere else that will help your interview the person that you're speaking to, gain their confidence back, get back into their groove so that you can keep that interview moving. If you have 1, 2, probably 3 at best rescue questions available, you'll be able to recover from any of those situations, and you'll be able to do it without your audience really even knowing, because they'll just assume that you were impatient and you wanted to get on to your next question, and it works out great for everybody involved. Okay, last tip, but not the least tip. I had to go here because as much as I like talking about the dynamics of running the interview and how to do it and so on, there are also the how-tos, the technical issues that are inevitably going to pop up when you're doing an audio or video-based interview. If you're on Skype, obviously somebody's network could drop. It could start sounding funky, just like a cell phone call does sometimes. If you're doing a Hangout or some kind of live cast, the video feed could cut out. Who knows what it may be. In advance, mentally prepare for the fact that these things happen, and it could very well happen on your next interview. What are you going to do instead? If it's your guest's issues that pop up, so your guest is speaking and their microphone starts cutting out, sounding really funny, have a plan of what you can do. What I like to do in these situations is similar to the rescue questions, is have content or have a list of ideas of things that I've learned from the person that I'm interviewing, knowledge I gained from them outside of this interview that I can begin speaking to kind of freehand and off, just sort of off the cuff while I'm waiting for them to get their microphone working again. So again, it could be you relating something really interesting you learned. You could say, hey, go to this URL right now. I'm interviewing John today. If you go to his website at john.com/whatever, you can see it for yourself. Here's the blog post I read said, and this is the one that inspired me to actually contact John to interview him, and I really think you should go there right now and bookmark it. And you can play off of that while he recovers or she recovers from the tech issues and keep the interview moving. Now, if it's your tech issues that pop up, obviously, you need to be prepared to actually end the interview. It's going to be an inconvenience for your interviewee, and it's also going to be an inconvenience for the audience if it's live. If it's not live, obviously you can reschedule the interview and come back to it. But be prepared to kind of apologize for the mistake and just move on. Don't dwell on it all that much. Your internet cut out. Your microphone stopped working. Some kind of weird tech issue cropped up and you had no idea how to plan for it. So you had to cancel the interview midstream. Cut your losses though. If your interviewee is waiting for you to sort out your tech issues and you keep him or her waiting for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, eventually a period of time is going to go by where they get annoyed and they just want to cut their losses as well. So have a time frame in your mind. Say to yourself, you know what, if a tech issue pops up, I'm going to give it 5 minutes to repair, whether it's on my end or their end. If the 5-minute mark hits, I'm going to pull the plug. We're going to do this thing again. Have a bit of egg on our face, recover from it. It's the nature of the beast, right? This is what happens. The audience, the interviewee, you have all experienced it before. It's something you can recover from. It's not all that bad at the end of the day. So just prepare for it, have a plan, and make sure you stick to your plan. 5 minutes is my tip for you. Keep it within the 5-minute range, and then be prepared to move on if it's not fixed by then. And that's it. So thanks very much for watching this video on tips for conducting better interviews. Remember that this is all about content. So make sure that you have fun with it because when you're having fun and when you're inspired and enthused, the people consuming that content as you deliver it from that mindset, they're going to get that much more value from what it is you're delivering. Hope this helps you. I look forward to seeing some of your interviews.